Oh gosh, look at the crowd.
Come this way.
Those who spread goodness radiate happiness to everyone around them. Introducing LOLC Finance Credit Cards. Fuel the goodness in you.
This is LMDtv. I'm Fazmina Imamudeen. Tonight, we have Tania Abeysundara with us. Good evening, Tania. It's a pleasure to have you in the show.
Good evening, Fazmina. How are things?
Things are good. Thank you. In brief, what is the mission of the Sri Lanka United Business Alliance?
Fazmina, our organization, it's Sri Lanka. Of course, we had to rename it Ceylon United Business Alliance now. Of course, we came together during the pandemic due to the economical crisis in the country, and after the bomb blast, Easter attack, and along with that coming of Corona, and with the pandemic, and with all the issues that the SMB faced. So we thought coming together as a common entity would carry more weight than going individually in order to trying to get our tasks done. So that was the beginning of this huge journey together, as all organizations thought and came together for one common cause. So that was the reason.
Has any action been promised to address the demands that you have made to protect the SME sector? If so, what are they?
Of course, actions have not been promised. There are a lot of actions being promised, but nothing being properly identified. Every action, what has occurred during this situation, every issue has been addressed just briefly, but not properly in protecting the SMEs. To be very honest, the SMEs are not properly protected. We are being drowned, we are being squeezed, we are being pulled, and we are into a situation where we feel we no longer can survive at this rate.
So as far as the 4,500 SMEs and nearly 4.5 million workers are concerned, what is the fallout from the economic crisis then?
It's a very sad situation, Fazmina, because now the SMEs are the country's economy's backbone, or we called it, we contribute 52% to the country's GDP. We have housed nearly 4.5 million employees calculatively. That is roughly about 55 to 60% of the country's workforce. So that itself is a huge responsibility for the government to look after the SME. So all these issues that we have brought forward, what they have done is just like, not address the correct issue, but given upon just they're driven themselves in trying to passive and satisfy us temporarily. We don't want temporary solutions at the moment. What we need is solutions where we could go forward as a country's economical backbone, because we SMEs have struggled very much throughout this 3 years period, temporarily, for the simple reason we have SME is a unit that utilizes their own funds. 90% of the SMEs have calculatively developed their businesses with their own funds, because most of the time it's their collateral is their property. I mean, it's the house they live that most of the time they have collateral to a banking sector. So it's a lot of risk they have taken in trying to be strength to the country's economy. So at this moment, when we are faced with issues, I mean, where issues that we were never a part of, it is the wrongness of the country's economical strategies that they took that has led us into this harmful situation. So I believe, so coming together, so this 4.5 million workforce, what we have housed, and what I mean, with all the situations, we still have managed to, you know, keep them going as much as maximum possible. But it is country's responsibility, the government's responsibility in upholding the SMEs where we won't fall. So if the government can look at us with more empathy, humanity, to say that these are humans, these are not robots, these are people who are, you know, trying to survive. If they should have that sort of impact on us, that I mean, it is very hard, Fazmina, at this current situation, with the greatest difficulty, we are managing to sustain our employment. Our overheads are more than our income. So just imagine how, as SMBs, how are we going to go forward? So this 4.5 million workforce is a big responsibility on the government. If they do not take necessary action in looking after the SMEs, these people will lose their jobs. I mean, gradually, slowly, it is going to happen. So if that happens, means it is a worse situation of the country's economy is going at a rapid downfall. So if this hits so badly, I mean, there is no turning back.
Your organization, Tania, has called for politicians to unite and stabilize the economy. Can you elaborate on this?
I mean, we as SMBs, we have no color, we have no government, we have no, for us, it's the government's policies that matters to us. So we have always urged any government that comes into power, all we ask is the systems to prevail. If the system prevails, the government would go forward. And for us as SMEs, we have the ability of standing within the system. So we have always asked any government at this current moment, I mean, put colors aside, put parties aside. I mean, you having empathy and humanity within themselves, trying to bring this downgone economy together, to bring it to a situation where we can breathe. So as politicians, these people have a lot of responsibility towards the country. It's just that they are being put in a ruling position because we expect them to take correct decisions. We want them to be in a position where they would make the decision on behalf of a country, not personally. So at this moment, I believe most of the politicians are thinking of themselves. So as I mean, as the SMB, we urge, we are, I mean, asking all these politicians, put aside their personal views, put aside their personal opinions, and bring this country forward economically strong. They have to come together as one now. I mean, for anybody to do politics, there should be a country, Fazmina. At this moment, the way these politicians are behaving, we won't have a country left. I mean, they are so self-centered. It is pathetic to see how self-centered these politicians are. I mean, isn't power is being given to an entity not to abuse, but to protect. Soon as you sit on a seat, you don't take power into your hand. You think and you act with empathy and humanity, because it's a huge responsibility, and they have to realize this is a job that is being given to them for a period of time. It's like you and me. I might own a company, but I am doing a job. You are doing a job. Same way they are doing a job. They do not own this country. They are here to protect and serve this 22 million population. So we have sent them to a parliament called an institute to protect the system, to bring about law and order, bring about proper economical strategies, to bring about systems where the country can prevail, where the SME can prevail, I mean, where people can live. I mean, today it's a handful that is living. The rest is struggling into a situation. It is pathetic to see what is going on. And why can't these people understand? And as a government, I mean, we have organizations. We put these organizations, we put them in a proper pathway where we could benefit out of the system. If the system is gray, what do you expect the people to be?
So is there a need to reintroduce loan moratoriums like at the height of the pandemic to help the small businesses? If so, how can the state and the banking sector do this other than by printing more money?
Fazmina, printing money is not the solution. I don't believe printing money is a solution at all. But what I believe is prevailing a system. Where we manage whatever we have into a situation. At the moment, moratorium has to be extended, because for the last 2 years, as I explained earlier, our business have gone downsized. We have gone downstream. So with the situation in the country, when our overheads are more than our income and we have no proper revenue coming in, how are we expected to facilitate the banking system? So if the government does not intervene at this moment and give us moratorium facility in order to upkeep our businesses, how are we to survive? This is not our mistake that we have come to a situation of this caliber. It is a total mistake by the governing bodies over and over again who has been in power. The wrong decisions that they have taken has led us to this. It is the mistakes of the government. It is the mistake of the authorities who is being put into those institutes, so-called economists, who has taken wrong decisions over and over again in not stabilizing the situation. So that has made us into this. So why should we pay the penalty for somebody else's mistake? It is not, we have not brought this country to this stage. It is the government who govern the country has brought this into this situation. So if that is the case, they should take responsibility in not letting organizations fall. It's not letting innocent people losing their jobs. So moratorium being lended is a must. And I believe that even the banks do not agree of the situation to say if the moratoriums are being extended, the banking sector will fall. No, the banking sector won't fall. If the moratorium is not extended, if the government doesn't facilitate this situation, then the banking sector will fall, for the simple reason, if we cannot facilitate our own loans, then what is going to happen? Obviously, if gradually the banks will collapse. If the banks collapse, the country's economy is going to collapse. It is a link. So if the government has to understand If things are being extended in a proper way, people will get to breathe. If moratorium is being extended and this certain loan facilities are being given to institutes that are at the moment, institutes that have gone beyond repair at the moment. But there are some institutes are at the verge of collapse, but there are some institutes still surviving. So they have to segregate them and try and help them out as much as possible. This is a responsibility of the government. This is a need from the government. And there are solutions. There are little things what we have asked the government that can be done instead of going into high interest rates. By increasing the interest rates at the moment, I mean, how the little that the SME is even surviving cannot survive no longer, because they are at a situation where they can't even imagine trying to facilitate this sort of interest when they can't themselves survive. They're trying their hardest difficulty even to pay the salaries. So, and with the current, all the bans that was brought forward, and with the dollar crisis, with not being able to import raw materials into a country where our, where the manufacturing units are virtually dying off. So with this sort of situation, how does this government expect, I mean, all these people to pay this sort of high interest component? I mean, they have to realize, I mean, just because you got a pen and a paper, you can't just write things and sign off. The central bank governor is a learned economist, so he has to understand how the system prevails. If one falls, the other will fall. If he doesn't understand the basic ABCs of economic, I mean, he shouldn't be sitting on that chair. If he believes the SMB is not needed, only imports, exporters can survive. The local industry does not matter any longer. Only dollar that companies that dollar earning companies are the only companies to be reckoned with. If they have that sort of mentality, a country can't go forward. I mean, we are a third world country. We have to believe in industrial economy. No country in this world has ever gone forward being an import economy. We have to learn to be export economy and industrial economy. So we have to manufacture things as much as within the country. To do so, the government has to support the relevant institutes to build up their organizations. So by putting restrictions, unnecessary restrictions, without even calculatively understanding, how do they expect? And all they want is high interest. Their taxations have rapidly changed. Their taxes have gone up. The new budget is not SMB friendly at all. So how do they expect these 4.5 million workers to survive? I think a child would understand this more than the so-called economist.
Tania, how is the brain drain affecting the SME sector?
It is a huge toll. A huge toll. I mean, we have already we have already taken a huge beating with every way. And with all this squeezing us up to a situation where we cannot no longer survive is like, it's a normal thing, Fazmina. I mean, we have been pushed against a wall and we feel we cannot breathe no longer. And with all the economy, the dollar issue, the taxation, with goods being barred, So all this has impacted on us very, very badly. So I like, you know, at this stage, if we were to go on, I mean, already nearly 20% of the SMVs have shut down. And I think about 40% is barely at the verge of shutting down. So another 40% is struggling barely to upkeep their industries going. So if the government doesn't understand and give us solutions into bringing us together, I mean, they should be addressing the SMVs. We have urged the government to have a forum, put about, and you know, have committees with the SMVs. Try to understand us. Try to get our idea before they implement rules. Implementation comes with you know, analyzing the situation. So without analyzing any situation, you start implementing rules, then what is going to happen? So this government, I mean, all governments so far has been doing this. But the Prime Minister, when he was a Prime Minister, he promised us, he met with us and he promised to have a committee of SMEs to be put into relevant organizations, ministries, where we would be taken up as an entity every month, where they would discuss issues before it becomes problems. So I hope at least this current president will keep up to his promise in having these committees formed for the benefit of the SMVs, because we need to be heard, because we are the economy's backbone. We contribute 52% to the country's GDP. We house more than 4.5 million workforce. So we have calculatively, we are responsible for 55% of the country's workforce. So that is a huge responsibility on the government. So sooner or later, they have to realize if we were to collapse, the country's economy is going to collapse. And Fazmina, every country in the world, their priority has been always the SMV. They make rules, they make regulations, they make systems where the SMVs will benefit on the longer run. This is the only country in the world where we have never been taken into consideration. It is the masses who have the vote base they would take into consideration, or the multinational companies where they benefit out for their own gains. So what is going to happen is those two entities are the only entities who have been working and the rules have been enforced on, systems have been put. But we, who have been the country's breadwinner, the economy's backbone, is been neglected totally. For why? For their own benefit. Because SMVs are never in their lifelong time has been issued to any government. We survive through and thick of any issues because we believe it is our responsibility, because it is our own funding that we are taken to risk. So we will never let our companies fall. We will fight till the last minute. So because of that, the government thinks that we are not important enough for them to take into consideration. So that is the only reason. So we have always urged, I mean, systems have to be put. At least any government that comes into power should have systems that takes the SMV into consideration, at least for 25 years ahead. We should have systems. I mean, there should be policies made, immaterial of who comes into power, policies will prevail. Systems will go on. If that happens, this country can go forward fast. And I mean, this is a small country and it has so much of, potential that can be made out of into, to make this into a developed country, it only takes, somebody with willingness and empathy towards, and the love for the country should be there. It's not who comes into power should believe, it's not I who have to rule, it's a country who has to be there. If there is a country, we can rule, we can have politics, we can do whatever it is. At the rate we are going on, nobody, even the young generation, take it into consideration, they don't want to even live in this country. Everybody want to flee. I mean, you go into at the moment you go, try going into a passport office, you see people sleeping on the roads. Why? They want to get out of this place. So all good brains, all the capable people are leaving the shores. So what's going to happen to this country? End of the day, we will be left with, I'm not saying, idiots, but people who cannot, benefit towards the country's economy. Because who can benefit towards the country's economy would leave the country, and some other country is going to get the benefit out of this. Policies should be made for people to survive and sustain. Not policies should be made for politicians to survive and sustain.
Digital transformation and innovation that seizes opportunities were prominent topic at the 2022 National SME Forum. To what extent can digitalization improve the supply chain? And is this a workable solution?
Absolutely. I think digitalization is a must. The world is digital. The world is now, today's generation, if you were to take a 9-year-old would know technology very much more than you and me, because the world is digital now. I mean, the world believes in going forward digitally. So I think, like, most private institutes, I could say to 80%, they have digitalized their systems. So that's why they are more efficient, because with a smaller number of workforce, they can get a bigger output out of it, because the systems are there. Systems prevail. It's not the workforce that takes the company forward, it's the system, because when the system is there, it is very easy to understand. No, that should be the case with the government institute. I think every government organization today is overpopulated. I mean, if you were to segregate any government organization and to realize each chair, there are more than 10 people to one job category. So and they themselves don't understand their job category. If you go to a government institute, you try getting some work done, you cannot, because 90% of the employer does not know why he is even there. So you are going and round the mulberry bush just to get one work done, and you come back to the same thing to say nobody knows. Why? Because there is no proper systems being implemented. I think digitalization is the future. I mean, going forward, digitally, it's so easy, because today's world is digital. So if you want to go into the world economy, we have to be in par with it. To be in par with it, we have to educate our organizations, our employers, to be systematic, to be more digital friendly. So same sort of things have to be implemented to government institute. Only the private sector being digital, and it's not enough, because the private sector, how much we are digital or we try to go forward, we are linked with the government institutes. So if the government institutes are not properly digitalized, they would not understand both sides to a story. So when we try to try explaining a situation, when we want to get some work done, Why is it difficult in a government institute? Most of these people don't understand why we are there even. So it is a simple thing that they would try in hundreds of different ways not to do the job, more than trying to do the job. They will discourage us more than encouraging us. And they expect us to be in par with the world economical situation. But how can we do that if one side is digital and the other side is not? So it has to be hand in hand. I mean, most of these government institutes, they are all popular. There are too many workers and they don't know why even they are there.
SMEs face challenges entering the international market because they lack knowledge of regulations and standards, as well as funding. Can you elaborate 3 survival strategies for SMEs to sustain a place in the global market?
One, I would very strongly believe that the government should help us go into the global market, because SMEs are entities, are not multinational companies. They are, most of these companies are friendly, user-friendly systems are made. Their industries are being made for the local market. So it's not to say that we are not capable. We are more than capable enough. It's just that we are not being properly groomed. Our hurdles are not being met because we don't understand how to go into the most of the SMEs. So we have urged the EDB, we have urged the industry minister, we have urged the finance ministry, we have urged these ministries, these entities to have systems where we as SMEs can go, make us room and make us understand how to go into the world market. In doing so, it's a easy way of understanding the situation is trying to groom the SMEs into how to be par with the export market. To do that, we have to be given the opportunity to find market values, and we have to be taken into trade shows. We have to be bought, especially the EDB should have seminars, organize work shows for the SMEs where they could interact, and they will have a briefer knowledge how to get into the export market. So most of these people are more than capable enough. It's just that they have not been properly groomed enough to be there. So it is, like I said, it is been trying to educate the system.
Thank you, Tania. The pandemic and the economic crisis are each having a significant impact on SMEs, clearly. And you shed light on the real plight of the SMEs and shared some insightful propositions.
Come again, Fazmina?
Thank you for your presence here. Thanks a lot for sharing insights. Hello.
Thank you. Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Fazmina, for having me on the show. And did you ask me another question? I didn't get it.
No, I did not.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for having me on the show. It was a pleasure talking to you. And thank you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tania. That's all from us tonight.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.